Hello, everyone. I'm Alessandro Frigeri. I'm a researcher at the National Institute of Astrophysics in Rome. I'm a geologist and I work here since 10 years now. And today we will see the introduction of Andrea was very good. I am professionally perfect. I mean, Andrea just explained you years of study about how these maps, these geologic maps are being produced, are being synthesized in terms of cartography, which is very important. And with Andrea, you had a really beautiful introduction on the theory and the historic background. And what I want to do with you today is that we go towards the practical side, but keeping in mind about the importance of the layout and the meaning of that, because it's not just an option, it's part of the process which brings the mapping work to something which is tangible and useful for science. So let's start, and let's see if you see the slide, Luca.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
great.
That's fine.
Perfect. So, as I said before, today it will be, we are the last day, and we are really concretizing the things that you guys, you did this week. And so the layout is ideal for that, okay? So the first thing we will face is understanding the importance of layout, and then we will try to produce a layout in QGIS. It will be simple. It will be not like the very complete one that Andrea presented, but those ones are the result of a year-plus process. So we must be aware about that. And at the end of the process, at the end of this session, you will be able to export your map for printing or further work in desktop publishing software like Inkscape that Ricardo showed you this morning. So you will be able to import your map into Inkscape for further processing. And of course, we will use QGIS for that. And a thing that you must be aware is that QGIS is being capable to do these kind of things, the cartographic coding, since the version 3. Before, it was almost impossible to produce a good layout and with graphical user interface. It was possible, but you have really to work hard, sometimes working in PostScript in strange languages. So now we are blessed because QGIS allows us to produce a meaningful layout. So first things first. Why do we need a layout? So the layout is not just an option of a GIS, but it's part of the process, as I said before, because the layout represents, as we say from Andrea, the symbolized map at a useful scale. So basically, we are taking our mapping work, we put symbols and colors on that, and we produce that at a useful scale. The symbols are selected accurately to represent something. Matteo showed you a lot of structures, and these structures are represented by symbols. And the symbols are very intuitive, but also specialized. Those symbols are important because they allow to communicate on a graphical aspect, on a graphical plane, the meaning of the line that we traced. So it's important to be consistent with the symbols, with the symbology, And also it's important to choose a scale which allows us to communicate the content of our mapping work. So one part of the layout is the map, as you can imagine. In fact, some of you during the mapping exercise, they produce a symbolized map with the colors and also a small legend, which is very good. It means that you are in the right direction. You know that the mapping work done in the GIS has to come out somehow into its graphical representation. And so from Andrea, we saw other element around the map, which are very important, which are commonly graphical textual elements which support the communication of the story that you are telling with your map, basically. And this is done on different media. So we are coming out, we are getting out from the digital geographic information system on various media. So this need comes from far behind. And just to fix this idea, I did a small research and I found this very interesting example from the city of Rome, which is a layout that the ancient Romans decided to give to the first map of the whole city of Rome in 200 after Christ. And it's interesting because, first of all, the media is marble, it's not paper. So the media is marble, and the detail that they wanted to communicate us is very high. As you see in the right, the detail is like, you can see the walls and the columns. And so the detail was very high. But this means that they had to represent all the town of Rome at a scale to 1:240, which means that now if you walk into the Forum of Rome, you can see the place where they exposed this, this map, which is 18 meters by 30, which is huge. We can consider that, I like to imagine it like Google Maps for the Romans. Imagine them going to the Forum and say, okay, that's the house of my uncle, that is where I go to the gym, and then where I go to school, for example. Okay, this is to say that the layout is important, and because it translates the information towards some meaningful representation for everyone, for communicating to everyone. So as a geologist, we must be good in mapping, but also in representing what the mapping is telling us. So to sum up, the map layout is the sum of the base map and the interpretation that we give to the base map. So the contact and the unit that comes from the contact, the structures, and all the elements that we survey, or well, we map. And all the configuration, DB tables or styles, everything digital that maybe you don't know, but they are behind the scene in a GIS. So with print layouts, with layouts in general, but with print layouts, we go out from the GIS domain. So we go out from our GIS software towards the world of people that are likely to understand what we have mapped, and increasing their knowledge with our work. So this is a slide which summarizes the environment in this sense. It's a graphical representation of what I just said. So we have the GIS domain, and so our maps, base map, GeoTIFF, shapefile, GeoPackage, GeoEverything on one side. And this is specific to people that are using GIS. So GIS expert or geologists which use GIS, nerd or whatever. And thanks to the layout manager, thanks to a piece of software of QGIS, we can produce a cartographic setup of our data and produce something for the non-GIS domain, which is the complementary of this domain. And basically, we are producing some documents, if we say, which are graphical representation. And the main format are PDF, which stand for Portable Document Format, and SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics, which are very good. One, because it's very, it has a long experience in producing meaningful graphics, like PDF, which is a very old format, but very smart. And SVG, which it's less known, but it's very interesting because it's ideal for the network. And afterwards, we will see a small example, which is quite nice. And it's interesting to understand why SVG is kind of peculiar for our work. So the PDF or SVG are the so-called open format or interoperable format. This strange word is important because it means that they can be transferred from one system to the other without so much effort. So, for example, if we produce a PDF or an SVG out of QGIS, we will be able to import them in Inkscape, as we saw this morning with the cross section, or we can import, for example, a geologic map. We can include in a document or a publication that we are writing, or we can print it, have it on printed paper, for example. So it's important to understand that all these elements are separate, but thanks to the fact that we keep the formats open and interoperable, we are able to pass from the non-GIS to the GIS and vice versa quite easily. And we have to keep in mind when it doesn't work, why it doesn't work. So let's go towards the practical side of the session. So the tutorial is about generating a layout for our maps. So I ask you, please, if you want to follow me, or otherwise, if you are not able to follow me now, it will be recorded, so you can follow it afterwards or following the slides as well. So I exit from the presentation mode and I fire up QGIS and ask you to do the same. Okay, do it. Meanwhile, I have just a reminder. I had another slide just to recall what Andrea said. So we will face this one. Basically, the elements of the map, which we will take account of, it will be the map itself with the coordinate and the scale. And also we leave space in our layout for the correlation map unit that can be done in Inkscape in a graphical desktop publishing software, for example. And then also auxiliary graphics that can be inserted into the layout. And then the description of map unit that we will cover partially by producing a legend with the name of the unit that you map these days. Okay. So let's fire up QGIS. And for this tutorial, I'm using the long term release, meaning the latest stable version, which I will use for this tutorial. So here it is. Okay, you see the GIS, Luca?
Yes, Ale.
Yes. Okay. So for this tutorial, I've asked Andrea Puzzo, which is here in the lab following the school, to kindly give me the work done on the moon on the first day. So I will work on his data, and it will be similar from yours. So I get rid on the red messages, as we said several times. Hopefully next year it will be much more better. But anyway, it is not a problem for now. So this is the environment that you are now, that you know very well, because it's a week that you are working on that, several hours a day. So this is your working environment. And what I like to introduce you is the layout manager, which is another part of software. But before that, I want to give you a suggestion. I mean, Luca and other people within the free software, open source software, knows that to do something, especially in open source, usually there are several ways. And these several ways can be like 10, 15 ways to do it. And at first, it can be strange. So you say, okay, isn't there a best way? And afterwards, you understand that the possibilities are so large that we start to change our mind. So to summarize this, I give you some suggestion, which is my kind of workflow. But you can create your pipeline, your own pipeline, and it can be much more meta than mine, of course. So the idea is that before doing the layout, you should have clear what you want to represent and the elements that you are going to put into the layout. And a good feature of QGIS is this one, is the fact that you can create the so-called themes. So themes are kind of a snapshot on the situation, on the various layers and representation of layers. So here I've created 2 themes which correspond to what I want to include in my layout. So one is the location map, which is also called the sign map by Andrea in the previous talk, which is this one. So if I click on my theme, the theme location map is the image mosaic, the base map image mosaic, and the frame of my geologic map. And this gives the context. The context is important because, as you see in the geologic map, usually you have the context map or the location map, which shows you where the map is localized within a broader context. So I want to include these in our layout today. So I create this theme. So theme, you switch on and switch off what you want. So for example, if we want a theme which doesn't include the tiles, we just prepare our theme and then add theme, and we can call it like image base map. Okay, so Now we can switch in the location map team. We can switch, for example, to the geologic map team. And we can switch back to the image map, which is much more quicker on one side. So it's useful also to work when you are working on mapping. But it will be very interesting for map layout, and we will see afterwards. So let's take a look to the geologic map team. So for the geologic map team, I've decided to produce a base map, which is the shaded relief, which is often used as a base to represent the morphology, with a bit of transparency of the maps. So I don't know if some of the instructor told you how to do that, but it's very simple. So I passed through that. I just show you. It's a kind of representation of the digital elevation model, which you see being the LOLA. So the elevation is converted into the shaded relief as a style, basically. So as you create the unique values for the scale, the color scale for the topography, you can create the heat shape and trim it as best as you can for the direction, the illumination, and the elevation. And this produces the DTM. And this gives the relief, basically, which is very useful in representing the context, for example, between the different geologic units. Okay, so this is my geologic map theme, location map, and the image mosaic map is another theme, but it will not be used in our layout. So let's go to the layout finally. So we want to produce a new print layout, which we call GMAP winter, school, Andrea. Okay, so we end up with another window. You see, it's completely another window. So it's another word, if we want, which is a sheet of paper where we can place our element, which are the elements that Andrea showed you before. So we have prepared the map teams in QGIS as I suggested. It's not mandatory at all, but it's an idea. We started the layout manager. And then the first thing that we want to do is to add a map. So to add the map, there is an icon on the left, which is add map, and simply placing the map on the left side of the map sheet, as Andrea suggested, it produces the element of the map, okay? And as you see, it is a representation of the map that we had before, which was the location map. So we want this to be the main map of our project. And so the trick here is to go on the right. First, we put some order, and we call it geologic map. And then we go into this checkbox, and we tell QGIS to follow the geologic map theme, which is this one. Okay. Cool. So we are ready to go to place this map into our frame. And now it comes into play the scale. The scale is important, as you know. And in this case, we go to 1 to 5 1.5 million scale, which is good for this map. So another option, another icon, which is this one with all the arrows, allows to move the map within the frame. And so with a bit of work, we can create. I have to change the scale actually. Yes, 2 million, sorry. Or 1,500,000 should work. Yes. Okay, sorry guys. Perfect. Okay, with these two tools, we just iterate. It's a bit, you know, maybe there is a better way, but this is the way I'm doing. Okay, and we end up with this guy here. Just to be more clean, we come back to 1.5 million. Perfect. All right. So this is the map. And this is the element of the map. If you are happy with that, we can lock it down after this work, which is physical. You know, you have to really trim the things. So now you cannot mess it up. So another element that Andrea mentioned was the grid. And the grid is important because it gives you the coordinates and gives the coordinates to your colleagues, which wants to know where is your study located at. And so you create a grid and you call it a geographic grid. And clicking on Modified Grid, you select a coordinate reference system, which hopefully in QGIS 3, if you search for the moon, you have geographic coordinate system, which is the moon, hopefully. And then we create a grid of 2 degrees by 2 degrees. Oh, sorry. I messed up. Moon. I want him to use the moon. All right. And so we have a grid 2 by 2 degrees. But since we want to communicate also the numbers, we create a frame with this fancy zebra style, which comes from the glorious GMT software, which is awesome. We create the frame, and then we need also the coordinates, of course, removing the decimal, which is now annoying because we are dealing with the grids. And we have much done with this. We have the map, which is good, with the grid and the geologic map. I think that we can call us satisfied of that. We save it just in case, and then we go to see what's next. So the map. Okay, so we need to add a legend and a scale, of course. So the geologic map is not a geologic map, is if there is not a legend that allows us to recognize the unit. So we go here with add the legend. The geologic map should be selected. And then we place this legend in here. And we call it geologic map legend. On item properties, we see that this geologic map is kind of crowded. And there are several ways of dealing with this. Sorry, I have to move this. There are several ways to proceed here, and okay. So we isolate what we are interested in, like this, and we create our legend. And the legend is called /y legend. And here we go. We have the legend of our geologic units and the contacts. So if we bring this one to someone which is not into our geologic map work, he starts to understand something. Another element that is needed is the scale bar. And hopefully with projected coordinates, we are doing well with the 316. But remember that if you are working with the latest version, so 3.22.2, you may have some problems in here. So be aware, just check that everything is okay. So this is the scale bar, and it is the graphical scale, which allows to have an idea on the magnitude of the size of the feature, because the grid is in degrees, and so the graphical scale is much more useful, right? Okay.
Ale, I think that the scale bar is still buggy on QGIS.
Is that?
No, maybe you can change the label, and then you can fake it a bit. No. Yeah, the old story.
Okay, I see. So never mind. So guys, unfortunately, thanks, Angelo. So be careful because yeah, it needs time. And so in this case, you should go like introducing something that we will see afterwards, which is some graphical elements. And we put a placeholder for our graphical elements, which we'll have to put afterwards in Inkscape. So okay, so this is a placeholder for afterwards for working outside of the layout manager. So we save it, and the next thing that I want to show you is that it's interesting that we can add as much map as we want, and one thing that is very useful is the location map. In this case, it will be the context of our map with a frame. So basically, we are seeing all the mare ingeni with the frame on the southeast sector of this big mare on the moon, where Andrea and you guys have done the mapping work. So as a rule of thumb, 10 times the scale should usually work. So before it was 1.5 million, now we go with 15 million. Yeah, it works. And then we do the work, the placement work. And here we have the location map, which is useful because it gives you a context. Before I just keep this, but as far as I use it, I find it very useful to communicate the context and to also speak about what's around the map that I produced. Okay, so speaking about the fact that the title is important, as we saw from Andrea, we put a title. So we go on the text and we place the element title, main title, sorry, which will be like geologic map of Southeast Mare Ingeni on the moon. And then it's important to specify the scale, just to give an idea to the reader about the scale we are showing, 1 to 5 million scale. We select a font like bigger and also free of copyright and whatever. So Helvetica, where is Helvetica? Here we go. All right. Okay. And then we put also the authorship, which is, as Andrea said, important. And we put Andrea Abuzzo for the GMAP Interschool. And so we have also a reference for the author and the time. The time when the year when it was produced. Maybe Andrea will be a big scientist, and then we are lucky to have worked with that. So another thing that is it's interesting, as I said before, it's this trick. Do I have time, Angelo?
Yeah, we have another 10 minutes.
Yeah,
10 minutes.
there's some 10 minutes, so we are good.
Okay. Oh, we are going. No, we are good. So another thing that I wanted to show you is this one, is the fact we were speaking about SVG, scalable vector graphic, which is this format which I said it's kind of interesting because it's good for the networks. So we want to add here, to make it even better, an image, a graphic, a logo. So the logo comes here, like add a picture. And then we have a picture here. And you can see here, or well, you cannot see yet. You can see here that it's possible to give the name of the graphic, of course, from your PC, but also from a URL. This is interesting because we can import SVG from the network, basically. And so now I copy you the URL. Before I want to try if it works, because if it doesn't, you know. So the idea is that it should download the GMAP logo, but somehow it doesn't.
Maybe it is just because it is a shortened. Maybe there is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It is shortened because I wanted. I didn't want to reproduce the big SVG. But let's see. We can recover that. GMAP. SVG logo.
Maybe Ale, you could just open the shortened version in the browser and see the full.
Thanks, Luca. Yes, thank you very much. That's perfect. Thank you, Luca. That was the solution. Free beer for Luca. 2 beer for Luca. Okay, that is the map. Is that cool? Yes. We start to think about this one, the fact that maybe, yes, this is just an example, but we are going towards the direction where we can import things from the network. So this is an example of a logo, but just think about symbologies. If we start to think about someone that maintains the symbology, we are not going to import the symbology and spend the time doing this kind of things. Okay, so we have also the GMAP logo in our map. And the last thing, I invite you also to put some placeholder, which is just a graphical element like a rectangle, which will be like, for example, a cross section. And also another element which is necessary for a geologic map, it will be the correlation of the map unit. You have to give some kind of information about the stratigraphy, or well, the correlation between the units, which is not exactly a stratigraphy, but at least the sequence that you extracted from the contacts, and that will be very, very useful to read the map for the final reader. So just let me put the correlation of map unit, that stands for COMU, correlation of map unit. Oh. I used it. Yes. Now I've lost it. That was the common placeholder. And then we put the cross-section placeholder. All right. So I think that we are ready to go. We are ready to go. And as you can see, you can export now your map, not as a QGIS project, but as an image, SVG, and PDF. So in an ideal world, everything will work flawlessly. But for example, the SVG can have some problems somehow. The PDF works well, but you will see that transparency is not perfect. It depends by the software. So sometimes it's the pain in the neck. And what I suggest is to go like, one option is to go with the print and going towards printing PDF, and it always works as on the average. I say this is personal experience, but anyway, this is the idea. So you can use that; it works usually. But if you go like with print and you save the PDF, you have a good printout. So save as PDF and download. Let's see. Oh, come on. I printed. Sorry, print. Save as PDF. Okay, without printing, so save. So it is already saved. I don't know why. So let's see if it works, if it has been produced something. And we end up with this one, which is the PDF map of the layout that we produced, which is pretty nice, if you see, aesthetically, I mean. And this can be imported into Inkscape because it's vector and can be modified afterwards. And then in Inkscape, you can add the correlation of map unit, the cross section, in this case, the scale bar, and have something that, that works. So let's see. Let's see if I have something else. We did this. I will update this for you guys because otherwise it doesn't work. So guys, if you did it, you have a PDF map. Watch out for the scale. And you have a PDF map. So you started from the data, from the base map, you interpret, so you did the interpretative process. You did in a GIS, and then now you have a printout of your work, which is kind of interesting, right? Because now you can communicate, you tell the story about the geology of your area, which has been built by small pieces in this week, basically, thanks to all the work that we've done together. So thank you guys. Now
there is a couple of questions. I think there is Lena was the raised hand since half an hour, and then there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Sorry.
No worry. I also didn't want to interrupt to get to the flow, but if we can just go briefly to the questions, maybe we can have then a break. Elena, do you want to ask your question? Okay, maybe it was unintentional, the hand on. So there is something on the chat. Let me read the first. How to alter the legend and install as items, and also how to include the coordinates, which is in the same in different tab of the same thing. And then there is a question on the scale bar. So I think that modify the legend in the layout and detailing the grid and the coordinates. I think is two questions that maybe if you want to just briefly mention. And the presentation will be there. Will be soon on Indico. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Andrew, I didn't get exactly.
No, it's basically how can you limit the item in the legend? How you can subset the legend items in the layout exactly?
Okay. So
exactly, yeah.
This is you have to come back to the. So you have several ways, which is good, and the quickest way, the dirty way, is this one, and then maybe you don't want to see how Andrea mapped the clutter floor, which you cannot see and say, okay, Andrea, leave it away. You just go, you just select it, and then, for example, the rim, and you remove it from the legend, and you don't have. Was that it was that the question, right?
Yes, I think so. In fact, it was essentially in the legend items. And the other question was on the coordinates, which is just below, I guess, the grid. Yeah, on this element.
The coordinate system. Okay, for the coordinate system, you can choose. For example, you can you can overlay. You can add several ones. So this is true, for example, for the Earth, where you have usually universal transfer marcator like UTM, and then you have also the geographic grid. So in this case, we can do something like this. And when you go on grid, you can add a grid, and then you can add, like, for example, metric grid, which will be useful, for example, for a landing site. When you will be studying landing site, it will be very useful. So we modify the grid, and then we use the same coordinate reference system of the map, which is simple cylindrical, and we decided to go with like 5 kilometers grid. Uh, 50, that's it. No, 50 kilometers is 50,000 a ton. Nice. Yeah, so let's do like 25,000 meters. Now is ugly, but we can differentiate. We use the cartography, so we use the cartography as much as we can, and so we symbolize them. Maybe we change the color. We do it like the Italian Geographic Institute. Here it is. Okay, when you get used to that, you never finish to choose. So this is the kilometric grid. If you want, you have to for example, we can add the coordinate. And that's it. Basically, the idea is that we can overlay several grids. I think this answered the question, right?